Pokémon Legends ZA is right around the corner, or possibly out now if you're watching this in the future. And if you're wanting to get the absolute most out of your playthrough and enjoy every aspect of the game to the fullest, then this video is for you. Today, I'll be going over everything you should know before playing Pokémon Legends ZA, including a full story recap of how we got to the events of the game, where the game fits within the whole Pokémon universe and its relationship to other games in the series, as well as a sort of history lesson of all the characters and locations in the game, as well as the Mega Evolution phenomenon, all of which already have their own backstories from previous games and will play important parts of the plot in Pokémon Legends ZA. Essentially, this is a complete recap of every little detail for fans who have played all the games leading to this point, that doubles up as a fresh new introduction to all of the themes, all of the people and places that will be in Legends ZA for those who are new to the series. So stick with me to the end and you'll be as clued up on Legends ZA as you could possibly be. Okay. If you know this little bit already, then bear with me. I just think it makes a lot of sense to provide some context as to where Legends ZA sort of fits within the whole timeline of Pokemon games. Legends ZA is technically classed as a mainline game, so not a spin-off, but a game that is part of the core franchise and therefore ties into the story and timeline of past games. The mainline series is made up of your more traditional Pokemon games that have each introduced a new generation of Pokemon and brand new regions to explore, as well as this relatively new Legends series, which sits alongside the typical mainline games and expands upon them with additional lore and context. Legends ZA is the second of these newer Legends games, following on from Legends Arceus. That game, released in 2022, was an extension of Pokemon's 4th generation games Diamond and Pearl, exploring what the game's Sinnoh region was like in the distant past. In Legends ZA, which we're talking about today, the game will expand upon Pokemon's 6th generation games X and Y, and their region of Kalos, this time taking us just a little bit into the future from the events in those games. So keep all that in mind as this video progresses. I know the sheer number of Pokemon games available these days can be quite confusing for newcomers, but I hope that makes at least a little bit of sense. And it's important to note that you never really need to have played any past Pokemon games to enjoy the next one, the current one. They are almost always completely playable without any sort of background knowledge, and Legends ZA is definitely one of those titles. Having said that, I think you'll enjoy the game a lot more if you do know some of the backstory that's led us to this point, and that's what we'll be doing in the rest of this video. So with that timeline of all the games in mind, let's now jump into the locations you'll be exploring in Legends ZA, because there's a fair amount of history here that you'd benefit from knowing, and the location is actually an essential part of the game's plot. It seems that the entire game will take place in Lumiose City. Now, Lumiose is one of the biggest, most heavily populated cities in the entire franchise, and was first introduced in, you guessed it, Pokémon X and Y back in 2013. X and Y's region is called Kalos, a region actually inspired by the northern half of France in the real world, and Lumiose City is very much Kalos' capital, and is naturally therefore inspired by Paris. In X and Y, Lumiose was known for its famous landmarks like the Prism Tower, which is the city's gym and is inspired by Paris's Eiffel Tower, as well as the Lumiose Museum, a place full of paintings inspired by the Louvre Museum. The city's full of shops, cafes and restaurants, which were important to X and Y's gameplay, as well as huge office buildings and a canal that runs through the city. It's a super busy place, as you'd expect from a major city, and people move around either on foot, in cars, or you could even pay to travel around on a go-goat, which yes, is as excellent as it sounds. This is a map of Lumiose City as it appeared in X and Y. You can see some of the places I've mentioned and generally get a feel for how busy it is. Even the map has a very urban feel to it somehow. But in Legends ZA, which is set sometime in Lumiose City's future, things have started to change. Here's a map showing how Lumiose appears in Legends ZA. The basic structure of the city is still intact, with the Prism Tower proudly standing in the centre, and the major paths leading out from the centre still being visible. But the city now also boasts more futuristic, cutting-edge facilities alongside a new focus on greenery being introduced. Now this is all because of one of Legends ZA's major plot points, which is that a company called Quasartico Inc., which is brand new, we hadn't heard of these in X and Y or any past games, but this new company is leading an urban redevelopment plan for the city, aiming to turn it into a place that belongs to both people and Pokemon. Part of the greenery you're seeing on the map will be the all-new Wild Zones, fenced off areas of the city that have been specifically made to allow Pokemon to live and roam free as part of Quasartico Inc.'s plan. So, as you can see, part of the fun of Legends ZA will be seeing how Lumiose City has evolved from how we saw it before in X and Y to how it is now, which I think is pretty cool. The city's changed in other ways too. As well as the wild zones, there are also new battle zones, which are also fenced off areas, but for trainer battles, instead of being a place for wild Pokemon. These battle zones appear throughout the city at night, where trainers can battle each other as part of the ZA Royale competition, another new concept that you'll discover as you play Legends ZA. One more important new location in the city before we move on is Hotel Z. This hotel serves as your headquarters in Legends ZA, and several members of the main cast will also be based there. So I'll get onto that more when we dive into the characters you'll be meeting in the game in just a moment. But hopefully this quick overview of Lumiose City and its past will just offer you some more context, more understanding of what's actually going on in the plot of Legends ZA when you come around to playing it. For long-time fans, I think seeing Lumiose City in all of its HD glory for the first time will hopefully be quite the treat. Right, as promised then, let's move on to the characters you'll be meeting in the game. Some characters are brand new to Legends ZA, so obviously new players and long-time players alike will all be discovering those fresh for the first time together, but others have featured in past games. So I'll make sure to get you clued up on everyone's backstories and how they've got to this point. Okay, the player character. So, the player character hasn't been the protagonist of any past games or anything like that. You'll be taking on the role of someone new, arriving in Lumiose City for some casual sightseeing, but then obviously you end up getting tangled up in the game's plot, you'll be making some new friends along the way, and we'll all see how this story unfolds together when we play the game. Speaking of those friends you'll be making along the way, depending on the appearance you choose for your character, you'll either befriend Urbane or Townie. I assume it's pronounced Townie because they are presumably inspired by the words urban and town. Anyway, brand new characters who live and work at that Hotel Z I just mentioned a little while ago. Whichever one of these you end up meeting will invite you to join Team MZ, a new organisation hoping to protect the city. There, you'll also meet Naveen, who is an aspiring fashion designer, and Lida, who is a dance school student. Again, to put anyone at ease if you're feeling overwhelmed already, these are all brand new characters so far, people that we've never met before, so we'll all be meeting them for the first time in Legends ZA. Things get a lot more interesting, however, with this next character, known simply as AZ. Now, in Legends ZA, this guy is the owner of Hotel Z, where you'll be staying, and is a very mysterious figure indeed. He's ridiculously tall and claims to be 3,000 years old. So there's that. At the time of publishing this video, I don't know how much Legends ZA will go into his story, but those of us who have played X and Y know quite a lot about him, and his story is very important to not just Kalos and Lumiose City, but sort of Pokemon as a whole. In Pokemon X and Y, AZ is a character who you bump into several times throughout the game. He looks considerably more rough than he does now in Legends ZA, and actually gets imprisoned for a while as well, so it looks like he's definitely in a better place in Legends ZA. But yeah, in X and Y, AZ tells us the story of the history of the Kalos region, and it's quite something. 3,000 years before the story in X and Y, two regions were at war, and people used Pokemon with special powers as tools to fight. AZ's very own Floette, who he adored, was stolen from him and used in this war. Years later, the body of his Floette was returned to him. Out of grief, he dedicated himself to building a machine that would restore his Floette back to life. He succeeded, but out of despair at the whole situation, he then turned this machine into what's called the ultimate weapon, channeling the life force of other Pokemon to create something so powerful that it could be used to destroy both sides of the conflict and end the war. Being exposed to the power of this weapon made him grow in height and expanded the lifespan of both him and his Floette. When Floette learned what he'd done and that he'd used the life force of other Pokemon to create this weapon, it was disgusted with him and left him. 3,000 years later, in the main story of X and Y, the player and AZ work together to stop the ultimate weapon from being used a second time by a villainous group called Team Flare. And after seeing that AZ had truly had a change of heart, his Floette finally returned to him. Beautiful. Magical. So yeah, that's the history of the region you'll be exploring in Legends ZA, and AZ and his Floette both appear in the game. So I hope that having that backstory and understanding his importance will help you to understand and appreciate the character just that little bit more. Okay, another couple of brand new characters. Firstly, Jet. Jet is the CEO of Quasartico Inc., the company that's behind the city's redevelopment plan, and also Vinny. Vinny is Jet's secretary at the company and has a fantastic little Buneri and Pancham hair accessory thing. That bit's probably not important, but there you go. Also Corbeau, who has a particularly cool design in my opinion. Corbeau is a new character who is the boss of an organisation called the Rust Syndicate, and you'll meet him whilst going through the ZA Royale competition. Just like all of the other new characters, we'll all learn about him together as we play through Legends ZA. Finally, two more prominent characters who we've actually met before. Firstly, Mable. In Legends ZA, Mable is the acting director of the Pokémon Research Lab, where she's busy looking into the habits of and reasoning behind the growing numbers of new Pokémon appearing in the city thanks to the redevelopment plan. And she'll give you some side quests to complete as well. But in X and Y, Mable was actually a scientist working for the villainous Team Flare, the team I mentioned that wanted to use that ultimate weapon again. Team Flare disbanded thanks to the players' efforts in X and Y, but it'll be interesting to see what Mabel's like now, presumably and hopefully now doing good for the world rather than helping an organisation to destroy it. We'll have to see. The last character is Emma. In Legends ZA, she's inherited the head role at a detective agency and is the city's best detective. The player needs to help Emma by tracking down missing Pokemon and items, helping solve problems faced by people in the city. In X and Y, Emma appeared as a young girl, indicating that Legends ZA might take place somewhere around 10-ish years in the future from X and Y. I don't know, it's just a guess, it hasn't been confirmed. But anyway, the player meets a young Emma whilst working alongside an international police officer called Looker. She's an orphan living on the streets, and Looker takes her in, inviting her to come and live and work at his detective agency. She learns how to read and write thanks to Looker's help, but actually ends up being used by Team Flare against her will. The player and Looker save her from Team Flare, and when Looker eventually has to leave on international business, he hands over his detective agency to Emma, where she vows to protect the city going forward. I guess now in Legends ZA we'll get to see her doing just that. So that's the main cast of human characters, but what about Pokemon themselves? As you may well be aware, Mega Pokemon are set to be a huge part of what Pokémon Legends ZA is all about, but I'll get on to Mega Evolution as its own topic in just a moment. Before that, there's one other Pokemon who will absolutely be playing a crucial role in Legends ZA, and that is Zygarde. Zygarde is one of the most unique, bizarre, just confusing Pokemon that has ever existed. Zygarde is a legendary Pokemon that actually has three forms, known as 10%, 50% and complete forms. When it was first introduced in Pokémon X and Y, only the 50% form was known about. The 10% and complete forms actually came about later when the next mainline games were released, which were Pokémon Sun and Moon. Essentially, Zygarde is made up of Zygarde cores and Zygarde cells. The number of cores and cells that are gathered together determine which form Zygarde takes on. In Pokémon Sun and Moon, these cores and cells were spread all over the game's map across the region of Alola, and it was up to you to go around and find them all, collecting them inside an item called a Zygarde Cube. I hope you're still following, bear with me. Now Zygarde's been treated a little differently in the various games it's appeared in. I'd say Sun and Moon was the most involved we've really been with Zygarde in terms of collecting all the cells and cores and things, but in other games it's appeared as just one form, with the player being unable to do anything to really change that. It all depends on the specific story of that game. It might be important to understand that Zygarde's responsibility, if you like, as a legendary Pokemon is to keep an eye on the ecosystem of the entire Pokemon world. It's referred to as the guardian of the ecosystem, and as we now know, Lumiose City is undergoing changes with the new green spaces and new wild Pokemon moving to the area as a result, so maybe Zygarde's role in Legends ZA will be tied into that. We don't know, that's just speculation on my part for now. We'll obviously find out when we play the game. What we do know is that Zygarde will have a crucial role to play in the game, and it appears that all three forms will once again be making an appearance. A Zygarde core actually appears on the game's key art, and the 10% form has appeared in both an official trailer and in hands-on previews of the game shared by various media outlets. It's definitely going to be key to the story in some way, and hopefully if you weren't already aware of the Pokemon, using this video as a bit of a reference guide as to what Zygarde's all about will help you understand the Pokemon when you meet it in the game. Okay, so there's one more concept that I think is essential to understand before you jump into Pokemon Legends ZA, and that is Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution plays a central role in Legends ZA, and as you might expect, the phenomenon was first introduced in Pokemon X and Y. The exact history of Mega Evolution is actually sort of unknown, and various characters that have been present in X and Y and other games since have sort of said contradicting things about where and how Mega Evolution might have come about. What we do know is that Mega Evolution is a temporary form change where a Pokemon goes beyond the usual limits of standard evolution, unleashing a Pokemon's hidden energy. A Mega Evolved Pokemon temporarily changes appearance and in some cases can change type too. And the evolution is achieved by having a Pokemon hold a Mega Stone that resonates with an item called a Keystone, which is something the trainer wears. Before Legends ZA, 46 different Pokemon species were known to Mega Evolve, including the likes of Charizard, who can actually Mega Evolve into 2 different forms, Gengar, who's a bit of a fan favourite, and even the mascot of this very YouTube channel, Ampharos, who turns into this magnificent hairy beast. During the build-up to Legends ZA's release, several more Mega Evolutions have been officially confirmed and shown off by the Pokemon Company. If you've somehow avoided these and you want to keep avoiding them, then look away now. I'll tell you when you can look at the screen again. Although, as I say, these have been officially revealed, they're not leaks or anything like that. Now, some of these are pretty cool designs in my opinion, although, as with anything, fans have so far been quite divided on a fair few of these designs. There will almost certainly be more new Mega Evolved Pokemon, more new designs that will be in Legends ZA 2, but we'll have to wait to play the game to see those ones. And as I've mentioned, the concept of Mega Evolution plays an important role in the plot. Okay, you can look at the screen again. Mega Evolution will actually behave a little differently in Legends ZA thanks to the game's new take on battling, where players battle in real time, running around a battlefield as opposed to battles taking place within a turn-based system. But the general concept of what Mega Evolution is and what I've described to you so far in this video remains the same. Interestingly, in Legends ZA, a phenomenon called Rogue Mega Evolution will be present throughout the story, whereby wild Pokemon are somehow Mega Evolving on their own, which shouldn't really be possible given what we now know about Mega Evolution, where a trainer's Keystone is required to activate an evolution. So what's going on there? Part of the story will task you with figuring out what's going on. Now, that brings us to the end of the history lesson, but I also thought it worth just very quickly explaining the various editions of the game that you can buy to make sure you get the right version that suits your needs. So if you are interested in buying the game, which you probably are if you're still watching this, I guess, then Legends ZA is available physically and digitally on both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. On Switch 2, it's actually titled the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition to highlight the fact that it will run better on that system with enhanced resolution and frame rates. I'll leave some affiliate links to the physical editions in the description, just in case you'd like to grab a copy. Buying through those links supports the channel just a little bit, so thank you very much if you do. But it's worth noting that you can buy everything digitally or physically, and even if you buy the Switch 1 edition of the game, there's a digital upgrade you can buy to upgrade it to the better Switch 2 version later down the line if you wanted to. You can also already pre-order DLC for the game, which is called Mega Dimension. I think it's a bit meh myself, to announce and sell DLC before the base game's even out, but maybe that's just me. That can also be pre-ordered from the eShop as we speak. Let me know which edition of the game you're planning to get and whether you're planning to get the DLC in the comments. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video all the way through to the end. If you liked the video, if you found it helpful, then please consider subscribing to the channel to make sure that future videos like this end up in your feed, and also because it's a huge help to me and helping this channel to grow. Make sure to also share this video with any friends who also might find it helpful. And feel free to check out some of my other videos whilst you're here, including a full 50 question silhouette quiz, like a Who's That Pokemon style quiz I shared recently, or this lengthy look back at every single Pokemon game on Switch, if you fancy another history lesson. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.